The morning air at Naval Special Warfare Training Center carried the weight of salt and sweat, mingling with the distant sound of boots pounding against concrete. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos adjusted her gear one final time before stepping through the entrance of the Advanced Combat Training Facility. Her duffel bag felt lighter than usual, but the knot in her stomach suggested otherwise. She had earned her place here through 2 deployments and countless hours of proving herself. Yet the sideways glances from the other trainees told a familiar story. The SEALs clustered near the obstacle course turned their conversation to whispers as she passed, their eyes following her movement with the kind of assessment reserved for unwelcome visitors. Chief Petty Officer Ryan Morrison, built like a tank and twice as loud, stepped directly into her path. His smile carried no warmth as he looked her up and down with theatrical slowness. "You lost, sweetheart," he said, his voice carrying just far enough for his teammates to hear. "The daycare center is about 3 miles that way." Before we dive into this story, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe you have witnessed similar situations in your community or have military families nearby. Maria met his stare without blinking, her voice steady as mountain stone. "I'm exactly where I need to be, Chief." The words hung between them like a challenge. Neither was quite ready to answer. Morrison stepped aside with exaggerated courtesy, sweeping his arm in a mocking bow. His teammates erupted in laughter that echoed off the concrete walls like gunfire. Maria walked past them toward the equipment staging area, her boots clicking a steady rhythm that never faltered. The training facility stretched before her like a concrete cathedral dedicated to warfare. Obstacle courses snaked between buildings, their metal bars gleaming under the harsh morning sun. Rappel towers rose like monuments to controlled falling, while the shooting ranges lay silent and waiting beyond reinforced barriers. Master Chief Williams emerged from the administrative building, his weathered face carrying the authority of 3 decades in special operations. His gray eyes swept across the assembled trainees with the precision of a radar sweep, cataloging strengths and weaknesses in seconds. "Welcome to Advanced Combat Training," he announced, his voice cutting through the desert air like a blade. "Some of you think you know what hard looks like. You are wrong. Some of you think your reputation precedes you. It does not matter here. What matters is performance under pressure." Maria noticed how his gaze lingered on her for a fraction longer than the others, not with judgment, but with curiosity. She had seen that look before from commanders who understood that assumptions could be deadly on the battlefield. Morrison whispered something to his squad that triggered another wave of snickering. Maria flexed her fingers unconsciously, muscle memory from years of martial arts training creating patterns her fellow trainees could not recognize. The first exercise separated the trainees into teams of 4 for urban warfare simulation. Morrison made sure to position himself as team leader while his cronies, Petty Officers Jackson and Rodriguez, flanked him like loyal guard dogs. The 4th member assigned to their team was Maria. "We need someone to carry extra ammo," Morrison declared, shoving a heavy pack toward her. "Think you can handle that? Or should we find you a lighter load?" Maria shouldered the pack without comment, adjusting the straps with practiced efficiency. The weight distribution felt familiar against her shoulders, triggering memories of mountain patrols in Afghanistan, where every ounce mattered between life and death. The simulation began in a mock Middle Eastern village constructed from shipping containers and plywood facades. Radio chatter crackled through their headsets as opposing teams maneuvered through narrow alleyways designed to test tactical thinking under pressure. Morrison pushed forward with reckless aggression, ignoring standard clearing procedures that Maria had memorized from real combat zones. Jackson and Rodriguez followed his lead like puppets, their movements telegraphing their positions to any competent observer. Maria hung back, analyzing sight lines and potential ambush points with the methodical precision of someone who had survived similar scenarios when the bullets were real. Her fingers traced patterns against her rifle stock, muscle memory from countless hours of training that extended far beyond military instruction. The first ambush came from elevated positions Morrison had failed to secure. Maria was already moving before the simulation rounds began flying. Maria rolled behind cover as simulation rounds peppered the wall where Morrison had been standing seconds earlier. His tactical awareness had nearly gotten the entire team eliminated in the opening moments of engagement. "Move left," she called through the radio, her voice calm despite the chaos. "Sniper nest at 2 o'clock high." Morrison spun toward her with fury blazing in his eyes. "I give the orders here," he snarled, keying his radio to override her transmission. "All units push forward on my mark." The decision was tactically disastrous. Rodriguez went down immediately to simulated gunfire, his vest lighting up red to indicate elimination. Jackson lasted 3 seconds longer before suffering the same fate. Maria watched Morrison charge into an obvious kill zone with the kind of reckless bravado that got real soldiers killed in actual combat. His elimination was swift and predictable, leaving her alone against 6 opposing team members. She moved through the mock village like smoke, using shadows and angles that Morrison had ignored completely. Her breathing remained controlled, her movements flowing with practiced efficiency that came from disciplines far removed from conventional military training. The opposing team expected chaos and confusion from the lone survivor. Instead, they found themselves systematically outmaneuvered by someone who understood that violence was not about strength but about precision. Within minutes, Maria had eliminated 4 of the 6 remaining opponents using tactics that left the exercise controller scrambling to understand how a single operator had reversed such overwhelming odds. The after-action review took place in a sterile briefing room that smelled of coffee and disappointment. Master Chief Williams stood before a tactical display showing the exercise results, his expression unreadable as granite. Team 4 achieved mission completion despite losing 75% personnel in the opening engagement, he announced, his eyes finding Morrison's flushed face. The lone survivor eliminated 6 opposing forces using textbook urban warfare tactics. Morrison shifted in his chair like a caged animal, his jaw clenched tight enough to crack teeth. His teammates avoided eye contact, their earlier bravado replaced by sullen embarrassment. The cameras captured everything. Williams continued, advancing to the next slide. "We will analyze decision-making processes that led to tactical failures versus successful adaptations under pressure." Maria sat quietly in the back row, her notepad filled with observations about terrain advantages and communication breakdowns. She had learned long ago that competence spoke louder than boasting, but the hostile stares from Morrison's group suggested they interpreted her success differently. After dismissal, Morrison cornered her outside the briefing room, his bulk blocking the narrow hallway like a human roadblock. His voice dropped to a threatening whisper that carried undertones of violence. "You think you are hot stuff because you got lucky in there," he growled, stepping close enough that she could smell the anger on his breath. "But luck runs out fast when things get physical." Maria stepped back from Morrison with controlled precision, her stance shifting imperceptibly into something more balanced. The movement was subtle but deliberate, weight distributing across both feet in a way that would have been recognizable to anyone trained in martial arts. "I do not rely on luck, Chief," she replied, her voice carrying the kind of quiet confidence that came from years of disciplined training. Her hands remained relaxed at her sides, but her fingers curved slightly, muscle memory activating defensive positions without conscious thought. Morrison's eyes narrowed as he processed her response, interpreting her calm demeanor as disrespect rather than preparation. Jackson and Rodriguez materialized beside him like summoned demons, their presence designed to intimidate through numerical superiority. The hallway suddenly felt smaller, the fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows that emphasized the tension crackling between them. Other trainees began to notice the confrontation, clustering at safe distances to witness what appeared to be an inevitable escalation. "You think you're better than us because you got some desk job kills in a simulation," Morrison continued, his voice rising just enough to attract more attention. "But this is not some computer game where you can hide behind cover and pick people off. Maria's breathing remained steady despite the mounting pressure. Her peripheral vision cataloged exit routes and potential weapons while her conscious mind maintained focus on Morrison's increasingly aggressive body language. Years of meditation and combat training had taught her to find stillness in the center of approaching storms. The crowd of trainees grew larger, sensing the shift from verbal sparring to something more dangerous. Morrison fed off their attention like oxygen to a fire, his chest swelling with performative aggression. "Maybe we need to test your hand-to-hand skills since you think you are so tactical," he said, cracking his knuckles with deliberate theatricality. "See how well your computer tactics work when someone gets up close and personal." Maria felt the familiar calm that descended before physical confrontation, a state of heightened awareness that came from years of disciplined training her peers knew nothing about. Her breathing deepened automatically, drawing oxygen into muscles that remembered countless hours of sparring sessions. The hallway had transformed into an impromptu arena, with trainees forming a loose circle around the brewing conflict. Some looked uncomfortable with the escalation, while others wore the hungry expressions of spectators anticipating violence. Morrison stepped forward, his movement telegraphing aggression and overconfidence in equal measure. His fighting stance belonged to someone who relied on size and intimidation rather than technique, weight distributed poorly and center of gravity too high. Maria shifted her weight almost imperceptibly, her feet finding optimal positioning for either defense or counterattack. Her hands remained loose but ready, fingers curved in positions that would have been instantly recognizable to anyone trained in traditional martial arts. The moment stretched like a held breath before thunder, electricity building in the space between them. Master Chief Williams' voice cut through the tension like a blade through silk. "What exactly is happening in my hallway?" he demanded, his presence instantly commanding the attention of every person present. The crowd of spectators began to disperse with the efficiency of smoke and wind. Morrison straightened to attention, his aggressive posture melting in a military bearing so quickly it seemed like sleight of hand. "Just discussing training techniques, Master Chief," he replied, his voice carrying forced respect that fooled no one. Williams studied the scene with eyes that had witnessed every form of military drama imaginable. His gaze moved from Morrison's flushed face to Maria's composed stance, noting details that spoke volumes about the true nature of their discussion. "Since you both seem interested in hand-to-hand combat techniques," Williams announced, his tone suggesting this was not entirely coincidental, "tomorrow's final evaluation will include practical demonstrations. Each trainee will face the combat instructor in controlled sparring." The announcement hit Morrison like cold water, his confidence wavering as he realized his confrontation had been transformed into official assessment. Maria felt something shift inside her chest, a door opening that she had kept carefully closed throughout the training program. Williams continued speaking, but his words seemed to come from a great distance as Maria contemplated the implications. Tomorrow would require her to reveal capabilities she had spent weeks keeping hidden, skills that would change how everyone perceived her forever. The combat gymnasium filled with anticipation as trainees gathered around the regulation sparring mat. Instructor Sergeant First Class Martinez stood at the center like a statue carved from muscle and experience, his scarred hands testament to decades of teaching violence to America's elite soldiers. Morrison volunteered first, striding onto the mat with the swagger of someone convinced his size advantage guaranteed victory. His teammates cheered from the sidelines, their voices echoing off concrete walls designed to contain much louder sounds. The match lasted 37 seconds. Martinez moved with surgical precision, exploiting Morrison's overconfidence and poor technique to deliver a series of controlled strikes that left the SEAL flat on his back, gasping for air that had been systematically driven from his lungs. Martinez helped Morrison to his feet with professional courtesy that carried no malice. "Better," he commented simply, "but you telegraph every movement 3 seconds before execution." Maria watched from the edge of the mat, her pulse steady despite knowing her turn approached rapidly. Years of meditation had taught her to find stillness in chaos, but tonight felt different somehow, charged with electricity that made her skin hum with anticipation. Other trainees stepped forward and faced similar results against Martinez, each demonstration revealing the vast gulf between confidence and competence. The instructor moved like water around stone, flowing past attacks that never quite reached their intended targets. When Williams called her name, Maria stepped onto the mat with movements that finally revealed glimpses of her true training. Maria bowed slightly before taking her stance, a gesture so natural it seemed unconscious. The movement carried cultural weight that made Martinez pause, his experienced eyes recognizing something that had been hidden beneath weeks of careful restraint. Her posture transformed completely as she settled into position. Gone was the cautious soldier who had endured harassment in silence, replaced by someone whose body spoke fluent languages of violence that most people never learned to read. Martinez circled her with newfound respect, his assessment shifting from routine evaluation to genuine curiosity. When he threw his first testing strike, Maria moved like mercury, flowing around the attack with efficiency that bordered on poetry. The gymnasium fell silent, except for the whisper of feet against canvas and the controlled breathing of two masters testing each other's capabilities. Morrison's earlier bravado evaporated as he watched movements that redefined his understanding of what combat could look like. Maria's counterattack came without warning, a flowing combination that demonstrated perfect timing and devastating precision. Martinez found himself genuinely challenged for the first time in months, his defensive reactions operating at maximum capacity against someone whose skills clearly extended far beyond basic military training. The realization rippled through the watching crowd like electricity through water. They were witnessing something extraordinary, a revelation that would force everyone to reconsider everything they thought they knew about the quiet soldier who had endured their skepticism with such remarkable patience. The sparring match escalated into something resembling choreographed warfare as Maria pressed her advantage with techniques that belonged in ancient temples rather than modern gymnasiums. Her movements flowed between martial arts disciplines with seamless integration, each transition revealing deeper layers of expertise. Martinez adapted quickly, his own considerable skills rising to meet the unexpected challenge. But for every technique he employed, Maria demonstrated 3 variations, her responses flowing from knowledge systems that clearly predated her military service by many years. A perfectly executed throw sent Martinez to the mat with controlled force that demonstrated restraint rather than malice. He rolled expertly and regained his feet, but his expression had transformed from professional assessment to genuine admiration. The watching trainees stood transfixed, their previous assumptions crumbling like buildings in earthquakes. Morrison's face cycled through disbelief, embarrassment, and something approaching awe as he witnessed capabilities that redefined his understanding of physical combat. Maria helped Martinez to his feet with the same courtesy he had shown previous opponents, her demeanor shifting back toward the composed soldier they thought they knew. But the revelation could not be undone, and everyone present understood they had witnessed something extraordinary. Master Chief Williams stepped forward, his weathered face carrying an expression of satisfaction that suggested this demonstration had not been entirely unexpected. His voice carried across the silent gymnasium with the authority of absolute truth delivered without ceremony. Staff Sergeant Santos holds a third-degree black belt in multiple martial arts disciplines, Williams announced, his words settling over the gymnasium like revelation itself. She has been under orders to conceal her expertise until this final evaluation to assess team dynamics and leadership potential under adverse conditions. The silence stretched like held breath as every trainee processed the implications. Maria had endured weeks of harassment and skepticism while possessing skills that surpassed even their instructors, maintaining discipline and composure that revealed character depths none of them had recognized. Morrison stepped forward, his earlier arrogance replaced by something approaching humility. His voice carried genuine respect when he spoke, the transformation as dramatic as watching ice become water under sudden heat. "I owe you an apology, Sergeant Santos," he said, extending his hand with sincerity that surprised everyone present, including himself. "I was wrong about everything, and you handled it with more class than I deserved." Maria accepted his handshake with the same grace she had demonstrated throughout their conflict, her response carrying neither triumph nor vindictiveness. "We all have something to learn from each other, Chief," she replied simply. The gymnasium buzzed with conversations as trainees processed their revised understanding of capability, respect, and judgment. Barriers that had seemed permanent dissolved, like morning mist, replaced by recognition that true strength often wore unexpected faces. If this story resonated with you, drop a comment about your favorite moment or character, or share if you have witnessed similar courage and hidden strength in your own life.